And we're back with another great installment of Data Distilled. It is Women in Construction Week, and we have a few guests. I've said special before, and I don't want to categorize people as being more special than others, but we have 3 guests that are going to highlight women in construction this week, and we're going to ask some very detailed questions, hopefully get some fun answers out of this. We're going to try and keep it light, but I may throw some curveballs in there. I'm your host, Chris Teddy. I've got Reagan Hundle, Tracy Deal, and Erica Freilich. They are all J.E. Dunn employees with all different roles. So we're going to get a broad spectrum of how we operate in the data construction world with the 3 best guests here. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we're going to go through this and have some fun. Are you guys ready? I should say gals ready.
Let's do it. Ready.
Ready.
Okay. This is a fun one. To go through this first, just because it's Women in Construction Week, what inspired you to pursue a career in construction, specifically mission critical? I'm going to start with Tracy on that one.
Okay. I was working in an admin department of a construction company, and I hated it. I'm not an admin-y person. So I actually I went to the superintendent of the construction out in the field and interviewed for a position he knew I wasn't qualified for, and told him I would finish my degree and he could interview me for a year. And if I didn't succeed in the field after my degree and after a year, he could fire me. And I made it. And I was the first woman in the field for this construction company after a full year interview.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. I never knew that story. I love it.
Reagan?
So I have a less of a cool story, but when I was visiting colleges, I really wanted to go to Iowa State. Didn't end up going there, but on the engineering school tour, I thought I wanted to do aerospace engineering, and they did this little program, and they talked about all of the different types of engineering, and they talked about aerospace, and I looked at my mom, and I was like, that sounds boring. I don't want to do that. And that was the whole reason we were there. So we were like, okay. And like further down the line, it said construction engineering. And my dad was in construction. And so we were like, oh, that would be so funny if wouldn't it be funny if you went into construction? And they talked about it. And my mom and I looked at each other again, and we were like, that's it. I think that's what I'm going to do. So didn't end up going to Iowa State, but did end up majoring in construction engineering at Nebraska. Go Big Red. And did my degree there. Nebraska was great. Went to all their career fairs, did a few internships. My last internship I did with J.E. Dunn, and I honestly kind of lucked into the mission critical group. My internship was with you all, with this group, and got a full-time offer, accepted, and have been here ever since.
Awesome.
All right. And my role is much different than both Reagan and Tracy, as I am business development for our mission critical team. So I started as a journalism major at KU. Went into corporate hospitality on the PGA Tour as my first job out of college, but then went into marketing here at J.E. Dunn about 13 years ago. So worked for 5 years doing strictly mission critical marketing, and then the opportunity came up for me to transition into the business development role. So transferred over there and have been working with this amazing team ever since.
Cool. How did you make that change? Like, why'd you go from marketing at the PGA to J.E. Dunn? Construction, 2 totally different switches.
2 totally different switches, 2 amazing experiences, but it was traveling every Thursday to Sunday, turning around, traveling every Thursday to Sunday and working in between, which was great without kids, family, but I did have a boyfriend and a dog at the time, and after 2 years, you felt it. Yep. Lots of travel. But I still travel today, so it's okay. Just in a different capacity.
Back into the traveling now. Cool. You said client solutions, Erica. Tracy, you are a pre-construction manager.
Yes, for mechanical.
For mechanical specifically, mm-hmm. And we'll get into a background of how you got into that earlier and where your previous career was at.
Okay.
Reagan, you're a project manager for us.
Correct.
So we have operations, we have pre-construction, we have client solutions. So we have that, I mentioned earlier, that broad spectrum. So it'll be good to hear everybody's perspective on how they see construction going and where we sit today.
Yeah. I think I'd just like to follow up. As you two are thinking about it, what do you wish someone would have told you about a career in mission critical or a career even in construction as a woman?
That breaking through a new industry as a woman's going to be hard. You're going to cry, and it's okay.
I think that's good advice.
One thing I wish I had known, or advice I would give to someone considering, especially like mission critical, the mission critical sector industry, I didn't know anything about data centers when I started here. I remember my first assignment was in Texas, and I literally had to Google, like, what is a data center? Absolutely no idea. And the advice I would give is, like, you're going to learn it. You're going to be in it. You're going to learn it. You don't have to have previous knowledge. Just, like, ask questions and, like, come in with a good work ethic, and you're going to get there.
I think that's really good advice. Do you find, are there any unique skills that either of you have that have kind of helped you navigate this career path and led you to where you are today?
Mine would be probably that I came up through the BMS or building management world, because that's such a black hole for general contractors and construction, usually in general. So just having that knowledge of knowing the building maintenance side of it, and being able to help direct during scheduling, and realizing that those people have to get across the finish line too. It's not just when construction gets done is when the building gets done. So that's been a big payoff along the way.
I would say, so when I started fresh out of school, I really just came in as like a blank slate, and I was really just open to learning anything and everything from anyone. And I've tried to continue that into my career, and just, if I don't know something, I'm not afraid to ask it. And I find that our superintendents, especially, or people out in the field, like, they want to talk about the work they do. They're really proud of the work they do, and they're more than willing to teach it if you just come in, like, with an open mind and a willingness to learn.
Tracy, I have a question specifically for you on this.
Okay.
How have you seen the role of women in construction evolve during your career, being at two different companies and seeing where that plays out?
It has actually been huge. So I've been in the construction industry for 27 years now. And in the beginning, harassment was a real thing. That has significantly changed. But I would say in the beginning, it did cut deep, to be the only woman in the field. But seeing the progression and seeing that mindset change, and like even men taking on more of a role of taking care of the kids, and there's things past work, all of that has added to the evolution of working in the field. But the harassment has been the biggest change in 27 years.
Wow.
Huge change.
On top of that, where I'm going to ask this question here. It's not really, it's more of a general question of and anybody can answer this. Okay. Data center construction, or the mission critical industry itself, I feel like, and being WIC Week, is still even behind in the overall women in construction. I do feel, however, we push more of it than I have ever seen before. But if you look at the numbers overall, I think there's still fewer, and a percentage side, a fewer number of women in the data center world than there are men compared to general construction. Is there a reason for that? Back to what you were talking about, you didn't know what a data center was. Do you think that has to do with it being an intimidating field? It intimidated me when I got into it, but do you think that plays into this at all? And what would you tell people about it?
Well, I don't know. That's a big question. I don't know if I have the full answer to it, but I agree that our mission critical industry is trending a little behind general construction. I think we even see it here as a company. I know, and we've made a lot of growth even in just the 6 years I've been here. But I think part of it is visibility as well. I think visibility really matters. And when you see female leadership, it feels like it creates a path for you. And there's less of that in the mission critical industry and in the tech world in general, is maybe part of it.
Yeah. And I think some of it has to do because, data centers aren't necessarily new, but I feel like schools have been built for a long time. Hospitals have been built for a long time. Mission critical is something that is kind of new, 12 years, 14 years is really the playing field there. So I think it's just women see the hospitals being built and are like, I want to do that, or a school. And where data centers, you just see a gray box. It's like, what's in the middle of that? So I think some of it's just leading to the fact that there's not a lot of information about what's in the data center or how it gets built.
And that probably lends itself to what you can talk about too, because in our industry, you can't talk about any of the things we built. We work for multiple clients that we can't say we work for. So being able to tout both your guys' careers in this is hard because you've both worked on confidential projects. So taking a roadmap of Tracy and Reagan through the J.E. Dunn world isn't as easy as taking a roadmap of a hospital builder or something like that. So
Very true.
That's a good point.
all right, Tracy, we know you've had a 27-year-long career, and Reagan, you are 6 years, 5 years?
Yeah, 6 going on 7, I think.
What has been the most challenging and most rewarding project you guys have both worked on?
Challenging for me was a data center in Arizona. It was converting a glass manufacturing facility to a data center. So it had its own retrofit obstacles from the beginning. But the biggest one on most construction site is time. We were behind schedule. And I was in the BMS world at that time. So BMS gets squished to the end and, gets crunched on the time schedule. So in a construction meeting, as we're all getting yelled at because we're behind schedule, I stepped up and offered up BMS to work 2 shifts, knowing it was going to pull the electricians behind me because I can't do my work until the electricians and the mechanics get done. What that ended up doing was speeding up the schedule because I offered up 2 shifts. I would say it was rewarding because that made everybody else step up and fall in place, and we did get back on schedule. It was tough because I was working my team to death. However, at the end of it, we had guys buy new motorcycles, guys pay off houses, pay off student loans because of all the overtime. So it was really bad working, 24-hour shifts. But in the end, the overtime was great.
I wish I had answered that question first. Cool.
You can do the good side. I did the challenge first.
Most unique. I don't know. I'm still pretty early in my career, and I feel like every job I've been on, I've traveled for J.E. Dunn. I've lived in Texas, Portland, Oregon, most recently Omaha, now back in Kansas City. And I feel like every time I've been on a job, it's a new role completely, and oftentimes a new client as well. So I feel like there's been challenges with every single job, and there's just been a lot of growth and a lot of changes, just what we're building, what team I'm on, the area I'm living in, the role I have. So I don't have like a specific example.
I think that's really important to just as listeners are listening, the opportunities that you've gotten that's J.E. Dunn itself too, but just as a woman, you've been able to take on a different role at every single project. And I just think that's really important and cool that you've gotten that in your 6 years you've been here.
I do have a cool one too.
Do it.
Data center, because this is data distilled. But anyway, I was working on a data center. This one is in Oregon. And it housed one of the first AI people you talk to.
Bots?
You ask questions to her. Anyway, she lived in a metal hut, and we had to keep her going at all cost while we built the data center to move her into her permanent home. So that was that was like a super cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could say more, but I can't.
Yeah. I want to pull on the thread of challenging and rewarding questions. And this is, again, general for everybody. You mentioned clients and what we do in scope, and you said one thing that really kind of triggered something and put my antenna up. The team you're on. Mm-hmm. Does the team you play on also result in either a rewarding or challenging team, internal or even external to clients, trades, not just the project itself, because the actual physical project that is done is pretty awesome no matter what. But you could have the coolest product at the end, but still have a terrible job because of culture on a team. How does that play into what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, I think the team is like instrumental in either the success or sometimes failure of a job, both not even just internal, but external, whether it's trade partners or the client team or the design team or whoever. And it changes just drastically. And it also just the morale is huge for a team. You're much more willing to like put in long hours or like go on overtime if you really love your team and you like really feel like you're all in it together. You're less inclined to do so if you don't feel that sense of camaraderie and don't have that like team dynamic and strength.
All right. So I'm gonna
Pause.
let me go to another aspect here. We're gonna edit, obviously, because you're not.
I don't know. I
Erica
think we
isn't
should
rolling
leave
into
it.
this as organically as she wanted to.
I think we
here.
should leave the awkward
Uh,
pause in there.
yeah,
I think that this whole thing would be awesome. So let me
I'm red.
go more into what my question was going to lead to later on. How important is it to have strong female leadership in the construction industry, knowing that it is such a small sector of that to be, it's I don't want to say embarrassingly enough, but it's hard to find women in leadership roles in construction. That's something the industry is trying to figure out in general, but how strong is that to have a strong female lead?
Can I answer that first?
You go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So I think this is a tricky question, and you hit on it perfectly, that there's not many of us out there. When I was coming up, I was, like I said, first, so there was nobody to lean on. So I think it's important to have women for sure, and look to the people around me, whether they're just coming into the industry or have been here for a long time. But I think what's more important is to find the men who believe in the women.
That's good.
And so that's what I had. I had somebody who believed that women earned their seat at the table just like they did. And they were able to believe in me until I could believe in myself. And I'm happy to say that that man is a J.E. Dunn guy, Les Payne. Like, he was my guy.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to Les Payne.
and he literally, he believed in women just like women believe in women. And he knew he could see something, and then just continued to push me. And so he helped me get where I'm at today. So women, very important. I would say I'm not really like a feminist necessarily, but it's pretty damn cool when we see somebody step into the role of CEO or CFO or VP director. So I think it's important, but it's more important to find the men who believe in the women.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, it's like men are currently holding the positions of leadership. So it's like they have a real opportunity to be allies to women and to recognize that like women need a seat at the table, and encourage not only like our hiring, but as continue to develop their growth as well, so that we continue to see more women in upper leadership tiers.
I think, Tracy, you mentioned Les specifically, but Reagan or Tracy, do you guys have any other mentors that you want to shout out to or that have helped you encourage navigation in this field specifically?
Oh gosh, just here at J.E. Dunn, I can come up with all kinds of names, but Dave Barber, Kurt Elliott, like those would be the guys who brought me up, when I was back in the BMS world outside of J.E. Dunn, and have been with me through the whole 27 years. So.
Definitely a lot of people come to mind, but Kevin Sears specifically. I interned under him, reported to him for most of my career. And then even lately, I haven't directly reported to him, but he's just always been someone that I can go to. And I know that he's someone that always has my back and is looking out for not only my professional growth and development, but like checking out on me personally as well. I also want to mention Elise.
Oh gosh, yeah.
She's incredible. She's one of the mission critical OGs, pre-con director, and she has just always been such a strong advocate for women in this company and their growth, and for me personally as well. And so I want to make sure she gets a shout out as well.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm gonna flip the script. I'm gonna ask what it is you two like to do in your free time, because then I'm going to pull at that thread, because I think I have an answer already teed up that I think I'm going to hear from one of you, that I want to go into that a little more. So what is it you do outside of work that gives you energy and kind of galvanizes your personalities?
I can go first on this one. So my personal life has shifted pretty dramatically recently. I moved back to Kansas City, now living with my husband full time for like the first time in quite a few years. And so now in our personal time, we like to go walk our dog. We live in the River Market here, like to go to different bars, restaurants in the downtown area. I personally like to read a lot as well, and then catch some shows when we can.
What's your go-to bar or restaurant down there?
I mean, I love Harry's always. My husband used to bartend there, so
we
do
talked
a
about
shameless
that. Yeah.
plug for Harry's. But there's a great new restaurant, Mooney. Same ownership as Waldo Thai. We love that spot for like apps and some drinks as well.
Cool.
Okay, let's see. Well, I'm a country girl. So on the farm when I am not on a construction site or sitting in the office. So what keeps me going? I chose career first. So I had children later in life. So now I now have a 4 and a 6-year-old. They keep me going. And then the farm, of course. Eddie's heard about my cattle a lot lately.
Yeah.
So they keep me going and, fun little creatures on the farm and chickens and dogs and, I feel like I'm on a construction site now that I've said that out loud when I'm at home or when I'm at work.
Well, I asked that because it also frames who you are inside of J. Dunn. And I can see both of those personalities and how both of you operate. And I can tell you, Tracy, right now, that is a no for me, dog. I am not a farmer. I am not an outdoorsy kind of person. I am more of a let's just give me the steak. I don't need to know how it gets to my table.
I would buy some eggs,
So
though.
kudos to you on that.
Yeah. Will you sell us eggs?
Yeah.
I do sell eggs. I bring them into the office all the time.
Yeah, I would buy eggs 100%.
And guess what? I'm cheaper than the stores right now.
Of course you are.
All right, I'm going to circle back really quick because I think we missed a little opportunity here, but we were talking about role models that you've had or mentors in the industry. What role do you see yourselves playing as a woman in this industry and just creating those opportunities for others or anything that you would do, for other women coming into this industry now?
Yeah, one thing. So when I started traveling right away, moved to Texas, a couple of different spots, and I'm sure there were other female travelers at J. Dunn at the time, but I did not know any of them, and I felt very much on an island. So something that I've been trying to do is to really be an advocate for and a person that are up and coming female travelers can reach out to, get advice on things. Because I just know that it can be a little lonely because oftentimes you are the only female on the job site still, especially in a traveling role. So I really try to make it a point to, when I know that we're going to have some either ME1s, PE1s, new female hires that are traveling, I really make a point to connect with them, just to let them know that you're going to be okay. And if you have any questions or concerns, that somebody's here for you.
So I think mine starts a little bit different because, as I just said, I have kids. Well, they're both girls, and so I push both of them now. To if they go to college, that's fine, but trade school, and they have chores and they know mom works construction and they put on my old hard hat sometimes to go outside and do things. And so I try to push them, that there's nothing wrong with getting dirty and you can wear your pink boots while you do it. And, carry your doll with you. It's okay. But, just to really go in and do all the things that the boys do. So that's on my home life. At work, I'm actually looking forward. We have a couple of potential employees coming up that are female, and they're right out of college. And one of them may not have much construction background. And so I'm really looking forward to molding her and just this is so fresh to her. She has never been on a construction site. And so it's kind of a cool challenge to know that she's wanting to come into this industry. And hit it fresh. So I'm looking forward to training her and teaching her all the things that we didn't get the chance to learn from somebody who had the experience.
What advice would you give to an upcoming graduate female?
I would say show up as yourself authentically every day. And that's good enough. And people are going to accept that. And people won't treat you differently because of the way you look.
Yeah. You own a seat at the table just like everybody else.
Yeah. You have a right to be here just like everyone else.
I love that. I agree. Okay, so just more about the industry in general. How do you guys stay up on the latest trends, or what are you reading these days that keeps you sharp in the industry? And I guess outside too, like Reagan, you said you're a big reader. You want to talk about the books you read, or are you?
Yeah, no, I can talk about the books I read. To answer the first part of that question, though, I will admit I don't do the best job of staying always up to date. I do try and read, various different news sources, New York Times, whatever. Try and stay up locally, especially with work we might have coming up or what's happening mission critical related in the KC area. But the kind of books I read in my personal time are very much just fiction and kind of for an escape.
Yeah, that's mine too. So for work-wise, I think being in the data center world and on the tech side, I think sometimes they find us. Like we'll hear just a tidbit on a call with a client, and they might mention something that I didn't know about, and then that makes me go dive in. Is there any? Do they make hard books anymore? Into the internet, and do searches on different things. So I'd say just being in the data center world, I hear about things and that makes me dig. But I would say that we have some great guys, Brian Pong, Jason Williams, like they will catch something and say, hey, listen to this podcast, or they'll send an email clip of you should dive into this. And so those come from all kinds of different places, from podcasts to an article in an engineering journal. So I do rely on my upper senior guys down there that send things. And then that does make me dig more.
Chris, have you listened to anything or read anything recently that
you
want them to look into?
Well, yeah, no, that's
yeah, I would take a recommendation for sure.
Great question. I got a couple I'm reading right now. Joe got me on Team of Teams, which I am really excited about, and it's a different approach to how we should operate as a group and collaborative. And instead of the micromanagement and the leadership, top down, it's more of a collaborative approach, which has been great. So I'm not all the way through it. Highly recommend it so far. It's General Stanley McChrystal. He's the author of it. It's a fantastic read. It's a quick read, but again, I'm not done with it. Quick read for me is a month. Quick read for most people is probably a week. Podcast wise, Prof G is what I've kind of got into recently. That is a fascinating one. It keeps up with the trends of business. And if you open up the Wall Street Journal or the newspaper or anything right now, it's always going to be about data centers. Just like on the front page again today, more data center work. He kind of keeps up with that. So he's I want to say marketing lead at a big conglomerate, sold his companies, I think, several times, several companies. But I recommend Prof G as a podcast. But you're right. There's a lot in our group that like to spread those kind of things. So we're full of them. And I enjoy that. My kids listen to it on the way to school when I drop them off. And I'm like, did you learn anything? And they look at me with I have no idea what they were talking about. And I say, I don't either. That's why I'm listening. But those are quick hits.
Along the same lines, so we build this technology every day, right? So have you guys utilized Bard, Gemini, ChatGPT, and what is the latest thing you've asked? I can tell you the first thing I did. Chris was looking for a new way to introduce the show, and so we asked for give us another segment instead of saying welcome back to Data Distilled for a new episode. And so if you circle back to the very beginning of this podcast, you'll see what
you can
Gemini came up for us.
Let's see. I can answer that one. The last thing I used it for was my self-review that was due a few days ago. So I wrote it all out, threw it in. It rewrote it for me. Sounded much better. And then I just copied it over.
Yeah, I used mine actually for my 2025 goals to help fine tune. I will say I don't use it as often as I think I should. I think that I'm not using it to its greatest capacity, but I have used it for like important emails, fine tuning like goals,
it's
or
great
like
for wordsmithing.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Takes my anger out sometimes.
All right, let's circle it back to Women in Construction Week here. How do you think all the activities? I know J.E. Dunn has an activity once a day. The job sites that you're both on, or Reagan that you're on, has a job site or an activity once a day. Our Moment Connection group is getting ready to go out and tour a data center here in Kansas City, which is really exciting. So all the women can see what a data center truly looks like. But what do you think Women in Construction Week means to all the other people in the industry, and does it shape your guys' view of the industry?
I'll go. I mentioned visibility earlier, but I think visibility is a really important part of Women in Construction Week. Having a national week like that, because that's going to get disseminated to, girls who are in middle school or in high school. They might see like a billboard or something on social media. And then it's like, oh, I've never thought about construction. Like, I didn't realize that was an opportunity for me. So I think visibility is huge for continuing to increase our female participation in this industry. And then I think it's also just a really great week to celebrate like what we have accomplished. I know Tracy mentioned that, you know, she's really seen a change in the industry in her 27 years. I've even seen a big change in 6 years. So I think it's important to celebrate too the progress that we have made, and then look to continue that.
I like watching my male counterparts, you know, find something new that's happened during the week. They're like that they didn't know about. I'm looking forward to the women's trivia that we're doing here. You know, just any of the tidbits that might have been pulled out from that, and somebody's going to be like, I had no idea women did that. So it's always nice being on a construction site during WIC week, because I would say almost every year since I've been out there doing that, there's always been some guy somewhere come up and say, hey man, you know, great job. You know, you really did good. It's really cool that you're here. So it kind of wakes everybody up, even if it's only for a week of the year. Yeah. It makes them acknowledge that, oh yeah, you are a little bit different than me, and you're here doing the same thing I am, and you're doing it just as good.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the close of the questions that we had. So I'm going to steal Teddy's thunder and use his line and say, now that we have distilled all that data, what is your drink of choice? Just to wrap this up and have some fun.
Drink of choice honestly changes seasonally. So now that it's warming up a little bit, I've been doing a lot of gin cocktails, but we had some really cold spells. So I was definitely like bourbon and scotch for a little bit there.
Mine changes probably seasonally too. I will say I gave up drinking last summer, and it's been a really good thing. But when I do sit down to decide I'm going to have just one, I'd say my go-to is probably like a Cayman Red glass of wine. That's my favorite.
I'd say an espresso martini.
Love.
Depends on the night. And then wine.
Wine's always a go-to. Like
especially a red wine in the winter, which is what we've been you know, at home with for these cold couple weeks. Red wine.
I've given my answer, but I'll see if I'm consistent. I'm going to say Irish whiskey. I'll keep down that path. I appreciate all three of you being here. Reagan, Tracy, Erica. You all rock. I think with women in construction, I think this is huge. And to your point that you emphasized a few times, the visibility of getting out there and understanding this is an industry women can thrive in and succeed in needs to be known, because there is half the population can be in an industry that is not, and they can be just as successful. And we need to help push that.
Great point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.